Welcome, guys, to another episode of A Quick Brew. Welcome, James.
Welcome, David. Chin chin. What have you gone with?
Cheers. I've gone with straight black coffee today. Need a bit
Same.
of energy, bit of rocket
Same.
fuel.
Yeah, bit of
There you go.
tired today, and I'm using the benefit because it's been warmer recently, hasn't it? But
Oh, it certainly is, yeah.
today here it's freezing, so I'm also using the benefits of the mug to keep my hands warm.
Really? There you go. Double whammy.
Double whammy. Double whammy.
Yeah, absolutely.
No cost today.
No Costas today. No run out of
week.
Run out of money. But no Costa for me. But happy as I go. I do though. This cup insulated, so I don't have the benefit. Could be that as well. But yeah, I don't have the benefit of warming my hands because it's insulated.
So you're essentially just drinking an espresso martini, which you're calling coffee, straight out of cocktail shaker.
Well, I mean, you can make your own mind up on that one, mate. But either way, I'm happy. James, look, come on. We got a guest episode, and I'm excited about this one.
Yes,
as always.
Definitely.
Very excited about this one. This guest reached out to us, which I'm grateful for, following seeing the pod, and asked a simple question: might I be able to contribute? And our response unanimously, yes, please, because I actually think that his area and what he's doing is of great interest. I think it'll come across very well on the pod. Fingers crossed, it catches on the feeds of some people that might be able to help to progress a program that he's working on as well. So probably without further ado, and so as not to either missell or misrepresent his guest, going to welcome onto centre stage, Reece Reeves.
Welcome.
That's enough of that. Welcome. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Our pleasure.
You can't wait for this one. So, Reece, probably best then, so as we can orientate our guests who may not have heard of you, maybe just introduce who you are, what you do, and how you make your clients' lives better.
Yeah, so I'm Reece. I run SOS Combatives CIC, and I derive from an urban combatives study group that I've made into a community interest company, and we've got a dual mission. So that dual mission is to teach people street relevant self-protection whilst using those the funds raised from those particular self-protection events to support good local causes and charities. That is, in essence, what I do.
Excellent.
Fantastic. James, is it too early in the show for... Great mission.
Yeah, 100%.
A great mission.
And I think it's something that's really important and relevant. You know, the world, I think, since the pandemic has become more agitated. I think there's a lot more ill feeling within the world, and we've expressed this before on the pod, Dave. You know, it seems like manners and such seem to be a thing of the past, or sort of like a dying ember. And yet I mean, I loved getting into, so I did mixed martial arts when it was actually going through a particularly difficult period within my life. And I found that even that connection with other men, sort of like my own Andy Man's club, so to speak, Andy's Man Club, sorry, releasing energy, getting fit, but also in a combative sport, in a controlled environment, I found it was a great stress reliever as well. Yeah. And I think it's important for people to learn self-defense techniques, especially with the way that the world's going at the minute, with all of the different pockets of war that seem to be happening and all of the different pockets of crime and such that you see happening. I think learning to defend yourself is paramount.
Without a doubt. So how did you get into this, Reece? Because obviously this isn't something that just has sparked out of nowhere. You've been inspired, or you've seen something which has triggered this movement and your desire to build this CIC. How did you get into this?
Yeah, so much like most people in my field, I started off as a kid doing various traditional martial arts. So things like karate and judo, those were pretty much a staple of my after school clubs,
Yeah.
if you like, you know.
Mm.
And as I started getting older, I started to look more into reality-based training. So I started off doing Krav Maga, and I did that
Nice.
locally, and that really sort of took things up a notch for me. If you ever make the transition to doing reality-based training, you'll see firsthand the kind of thing that I'm talking about.
Hmm.
Uh,
Hmm.
so I started doing Krav Maga, and that was really, really good to a point. You know, there was various bits and pieces. Like, I find it very escape driven. So what I mean by that is, quite often within the more commercial Krav Maga, somebody will grab your wrist and say you have to do A, B, and C in order to get out of it. And the
Hmm.
trouble is that real violence doesn't happen like that. You know, it's
It's not
it,
prescribed, is it? It doesn't follow A to B to C. It's violent and it's unpredictable.
I wanted to just say there, Reece, as well. So just for the benefit of the listeners and the people watching the pod, what is the main difference between learning something like karate or what you say is some more reality-based martial arts?
Yeah, so I've actually got a whole topic planned for you on the difference between martial art and martial sport. But
Nice.
do you want me to come back to that, or shall I?
No, jump on it now.
Jump
I'd
on
say
it,
jump on it
yeah.
now, Reece. And,
Oh,
and
cool.
James,
Yeah,
10
no
points
problem.
for a bloody good question by the sounds of it.
Yeah, yeah. So
Go for it.
So the difference between martial art and martial sport vs real world violence. So let's just say, for argument's sake, so you do a bit of training, James, yeah? Is that right?
Yeah.
You ever done competition and that kind of thing?
It's only at an amateur level. So
Yeah.
only, yes. So I'd done some amateur valetudo and mixed martial arts, but I was a striker, not a grappler. So found from that in a 4-minute round with headgear and stuff on, you don't feel the pain until you sit to the side. So
Yeah.
those were draws because your adrenaline's pumping when you're actually in that moment. And then neither of you are quitting because of the adrenaline that's pumping. Then you go to the side and go, by that point, the fight's over.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, no. So just to so basically, within real world violence, there are many things. You've touched on one of those things already with adrenaline. So there are many things that are present that are not present within a sporting or a art-based environment. You know, so for example, the physiological effects of adrenaline. You know, you'll suffer from shaky limbs, um, from tunneled vision, auditory exclusion. Your heart rate will increase, you'll fatigue quicker, and you are at a disadvantage to some degree because your fine motor skills are reduced and your gross motor skills are increased under the effects of adrenaline. You know, there's also the presence of weapons, multiples. There's the fact that it's not consensual for a start. So the way I like to describe this, I give people a scenario. The reason I asked about your experience, James, is because it's going to go into my little scenario that I give people in order to picture what real world violence is actually like if you've had no experience of it. So let's just say, for argument's sake, James, I'm going to pick on you now because you're in the we've gone the combat sport route. So let's just say, for argument's sake, you turned up to so you've been practicing for a bout. So you've studied your opponent, you've got to know what they're like, you sort of have an idea of your game plan and that kind of thing.
Well, like we see in boxing, so they will train dependent on the fight. So, for example, like when you see in boxing the recent fights that we may have seen, that say Tyson Fury against Usyk as an example, he will train in a way to defeat Usyk by knowing what his tactics and techniques are.
Totally different to fighting Wilder, who's proportionately different, longer limbed.
Yeah.
He's a big banger.
But I think
he's not so technically strong.
What Reece is saying is you study your opponent, you're preparing for the risk, preparing for the potential attacks that are going to be involved from that person. And this study usually goes on for months and months.
It's part of the camp.
Yeah. So let's just say you've kind of done all that, and you feel prepared. You're pretty confident. You weigh in. You know that you're an even matchup. Now let's just say on the day it gets to the day, and I'm going to play the voice of, I suppose, the unfair voice of real violence. Now, yeah. So that's the character that I'm going to play. So I say to you, yeah, sorry, James, there's been a little bit of a change in circumstances now. There isn't going to be a ref today. It's very much all bets are off today. And then I say, and that guy you've been studying to train, he's not turning up today. In fact, there's going to be two. There's going to be two blokes now. And it's not going to be in that ring. So we're going to take this into the confines of a phone box. In fact, I'll go and check and I'll have a look and see whether or not the toilet cubicle's free right now. And just to top it off, there's a chance that they may or they may not have weapons as well. And what you got to think is, if you was in that situation for real, and I'm telling you that, you got to think to yourself, how would you feel?
No, you'd be instantly mortified, wouldn't you? And already, but then come back when things like this happen on the street, you don't get that pre-warning. So you're already thinking, I'm not going to be able to handle this. I can't do this. I can't do this. And that's with actually knowing that at last minute things have changed.
Yeah, exactly. So for example, if I said to you, with that in mind, James, you still up for it?
I'm a different kind of person, Reece.
Come on.
No, I'd definitely say no.
Yeah, see ya.
And that's the other thing about it, is that real violence is non-consensual. You don't get a choice. You don't get a choice in time, place, or anything like that. In fact, it's going to be more suited to your potential aggressor than it is likely going to be suited to you, For example, just being on a jog, being fatigued, you're caught unaware, you're on your own, you're distracted by your mobile phone or your big stupid headphones or whatever it may be, and that's the kind of environment that you're looking at. So, yeah, that's kind of where I was going with it. Really, is you've got to think how would I feel if I had to deal with that? I've had no preparation for that, and
so what's the missing link then, Reece, between training sport and martial arts and getting to the point where you're now talking about reality-based defense, whereby the odds are stacked against you? Is there someone that you met, were introduced to, or trained under that has brought this and has connected, the beginning to where you are now?
Yeah, exactly. So from I best start off straight from the off. I probably should have said this at the start, to be honest with you. I want to give a shout out to my mentor, Lee Morrison, whose curriculum and methodology I train under. So I currently train under Urban Combatives, and I run a Urban Combatives study group in which people can come, they train together with like-minded people that want to train UC, and via my affiliation to him, and UC, I'm able to use the curriculum, use the brand, and really without Lee, because let's be honest, he taught me everything I know. I've got to give him the respect he deserves. He taught me everything I know, and without him agreeing to let me use my study group as this vehicle to support good local causes, SOS Combatives wouldn't be what it is today. So,
awesome. Shout out to Lee Morrison. He's he's an English-based chap, is he?
That's right. Yeah, he's a UK-based international instructor. So he'll teach all over the world, and because he teaches all over the world, the methodology that he teaches based on where he goes to teach will differ. So, for example, there will be very much more in other countries a heavy emphasis on using a tool as a force multiplier, weapons essentially.
Lumina proudly sponsors the Quick Brew podcast. Lumina is your AI conversation coach, helping leaders manage difficult conversations successfully. practice in a safe environment without fear of judgment. If you want to hear more information about Lumina and practicing conversations that count, go to wellityglobal.com/meet-Lumina and use offer code BREW10.
This is what I love. And as you know, I train martial arts and specifically karate. And, you know, we take our martial art from Okinawa, Japan, lead it back into China. Obviously, you spoke about Krav Maga earlier, which I think is Israeli. I think you've got Lee here, who's English, and he's got all his influences. And that's what I love about where we're at now with what you're discussing in urban combatives, is that it's presumably taking lead from all sorts of different places and surfacing it into something which should be practical and effective. God forbid if you ever need it, because frankly, you never want to use it. It's nice to have it, obviously, but if you ever need to use it. So what kind of audience do you train? What kind of student groups would you usually work with, Reece?
Yeah, so just to touch on something you said back there, you mentioned about the method, the things that UC draws from. So when Lee talks about this, he will talk about his various training over his 40 years of training, and he done what he called sorting the wheat from the chaff. So he took what works and dropped everything that didn't. Everything that works under the effects of adrenaline then became the UC curriculum. And what was the other thing you did? What did you just ask me then? I'm really sorry.
No worries. And no, that's interesting. They say refining the form that Lee's gone through. But secondly, the study groups that you host, what kind of people are these? Men, women, young, old, schools? Where would you teach?
Yeah, so within my study group sessions, bearing in mind what I teach is very niche, because you have to be prepared to train a certain kind of way. You know, not everybody is prepared to go to the lengths and depth that would be required in order to train for reality. You know, it's one thing saying it; it's another thing getting the kit on and being struck in the head with helmet on with no gloves. You know, and that kind of thing, you know. But obviously, in terms of my programs, the actual programs that I deliver, I've got one that is for sort of vulnerable people, so senior citizens that may need a walking aid and that kind of thing. There is one for women and girls. So UC has a curriculum that is designed specifically for women, called the Wolverine program. And that utilizes the attributes that women have naturally via their natural God-given tools to utilize that in such a way that doesn't require them to be strong. Because I understand that the primary threat to women is men. That's the main thing. Yeah. So we've got women's curriculum. We've got a youth curriculum. There is a program out there for families. So now we look at third party principles. How do we look at looking at after each other? These programs that I'm mentioning, by the way, are relative to SOS Combatives CIC, which is drawn from UC.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And the only other one that I failed to mention is lone workers. I'm looking at doing that. I've put together a program that targets lone workers that work out on the street in order to get them the tick in the box they need in order to say that they're safe when they're out in the street.
It's amazing.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's a good program, Lee. Reece. Don't know where that came from. What's it? We need to get Lee on the pod, though. Just quickly, just as a side note, I don't know how easy or difficult that might be, but no, I'm interested in Lee. I'm going to look him up after this. Just quickly, then, Reece, book recommendation, because you shared with me before the pod what the title is, but I don't know anything of it. So if you could just share your book recommendation, because I know it aligns somewhat with what we're talking about here.
Okay. Yeah. No, it lines up very nicely, actually. The book that I've chosen is called The Reality Gap, and it's written by my one of my peers and good friend, Sid Hiskey.
Okay.
And it's called the reality gap: facing violence without illusion. And it's a really good book that goes in depth into assessing, looking at the reality gap as a whole, what may be missing, and it gives you a gauge on what may be missing from your training in order to make it more suited to reality-based training as it's supposed to be. And
Yeah.
I can't recommend it strongly enough.
Awesome.
Awesome.
How many times you read it?
I've read through. I've read through once already, but I still refer to various different bits and pieces because it also has stuff that I can incorporate into drills for my own sessions and that as well.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Amazing.
And your golden nugget bit of advice.
Yeah. So my golden nugget piece of advice would be to, if you're looking to train in self-protection, real self-protection training, then you've got to make sure that you are comfortable with the uncomfortable. You know, if you are making sure that you are training to the point where you're not comfortable, well, there's growth in adversity, you know, so you have to become familiar with not being comfortable in order to prepare for what's out there. The effects of adrenaline, get inoculated to it, get comfortable with it, get comfortable with scenario training, get comfortable with playing a bad guy. Yeah, knowledge is power. Knowing how that works, you'll be more prepared for it out there.
It's interesting, Reece, and actually I got my daughter into martial arts when she was young, probably 4 or 5, I think she was at the time. And for me, it wasn't thinking that she was going to become, Bruce Lee or Muhammad Ali. It was just about putting her into a situation where she was comfortable with that kind of adversity. She was comfortable toe to toe with someone, and she wouldn't be overwhelmed or shocked, or have no resource when it came to being in that situation. Now, again, that is traditional martial arts, so very different to what you're talking about here, but a progression from not having done it. And I can tell you through training, it is physical, and it is challenging, but it is different. And, there is sports kumite in karate, which is scored martial arts. That's not practical for street fighting because there's not going to be any protocol. Again, there's no judge, there's no flag system, no one's picking up points or timed in a bout. However, at its foundation, it teaches you to exchange force, and it teaches you that actually if someone tags you, that's not the end of the world. And actually, if you can frame it correctly, you're still in the fight, obviously. And I think it's interesting what you're discussing here because, the odds are undoubtedly stacked against someone who hasn't had any form of training, who doesn't comprehend what combat might need to look like. And you would probably say, and obviously I haven't sat in one of your sessions, but you often can't wait for something to escalate because you're on the back foot, aren't you? If you know that's where it's going, then I think you have to be comfortable with taking it into your own hands and presumably taking control of a situation.
Yeah, exactly.
What's your connection with local councils then? Because, I think there's varied buy-in, isn't there, from councils and budget and facilities, but self-defense, I think, should be prioritized. Have you made friends with any of your local MPs or any of your local councils? Do you have any kind of funding or opportunities to train in their facilities? Are we at that stage yet, Reece?
So do you know what? When I first started out, this came as just an idea, and that idea stemmed from a kind of personal story, really. So I really enjoyed teaching self-protection training. It gave me, it was very rewarding. It's very rewarding to see people grow in confidence. I had one student in particular that was subject to a street assault twice, 2 very vicious ones, one where he ended up in intensive care and has never really recovered mentally or physically from it. And he used to say to me at the end of the session, because I used to drop into the station, he used to say, "Oh, you wouldn't mind waiting with me, would you?" So I used to wait with him, and that went on several weeks, several months. And one day he turned around to me and he said, actually, do you mind if I wait on my own? So I said, yeah, no problem, mate. That's fine. So I made my way off and sat in the car, just waited around for a little bit till the train came, and off he went. And then from that day on, he got the train on his own ever since. And it was at that point that made me think, well, what I'm doing is actually delivering people genuine confidence, genuine confidence. And I sort of took that and I thought, well, what can I do more with this, So I started going to various vulnerable groups and trying to get them involved to see if I could help them. And there was one thing that became quite obvious to me quite early on, and that is the people that need this kind of training the most are unfortunately least likely to sign up, So
Yeah.
let's take women that have been survivors of domestic abuse, for example. They've been stripped of their confidence and their self-worth so much that they will never walk through my door. So I thought to myself, well, how can I help them? So one day I was just mucking about on AI and I punched it into AI. I said, how can I use what I'm doing to help other people? And it basically came back and said, why don't you start a community interest company? So then I thought, I could use this idea to essentially help the people that attend in the room, that have the confidence to attend, but also help those indirectly that are outside of it to that I can't reach as well, essentially. And that was how SOS Combatives got going. Now we've got to a point where we're being recognised by the High Sheriff of Essex. We were nominees for runners-up to the Essex Police Community Safety Shield. Awesome. We are due on the BBC next week. And I'm sitting in the room with local councils and authorities now. So this ties back to your question about how am I involved with. I'm actually starting to be recognised properly now by the local authority. They're actually now starting to accept that this reality gap exists.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great.
And you're mixing it with all the top platforms, BBC, A Quick Brew. I mean, it sounds like success to me. Sounds like success to me. But that's really interesting. Very quick one to round up then, Reece. You mentioned something when we spoke a couple of weeks ago about, again, adrenaline. We've already discussed it today, but the reality that if adrenaline is pumping, you could get injured quite easily and not even realize it. You could be cut and not realize it. And you also teach almost that sort of self-preservation post-attack. Is that right? Have I got that right?
Yeah, that's right. So we teach everything from the full spectrum of an incident. So, for example, we look, these are all things that are missing from this reality gap that I'm talking about. So, for example, we look at how do we develop a heightened sense of awareness where I can spot a problem before it becomes a problem and to avoid it. This is essentially the best use of self-protection that there is, avoid the problem in the first place. So that would be the first part. Then it would be, how do I, if I'm not able to do that, how do I stop this threat in as quickly possible time as possible, in the quicker time as possible, by accessing the most important, the most useful state to me, that is most beneficial to me in that moment, And then you got to look at, how do I use state management to switch it off again, hit the big red light, And then once you extract yourself from that situation, you've then got to give yourself a self-medical triage. So you start at the head, your neck, and check, work your way down, checking for blood. Because like you say, you may not know that you've been cut. And then if you find blood, you've got an arterial bleed, would you know how to put on a tourniquet? And would you know how to get help the quickest way possible? And these are things that are all unaddressed at the moment within the current community safety initiatives and you know, because all they do is they take you to a kickboxing gym and say, right, okay, we're going to give people confidence by kicking a kick shield,
Yeah.
you know, and
Yeah.
all of this stuff goes unaddressed, you know?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That is really interesting. Well, look, as always, Reece, we'll link you in the show notes. I wish you every success. And look, you're local to where I am in Southend, and I know that there's a need for this. So I wish you every success with that. We'll link you in the show notes. We'll keep in touch as well. And as I say, wish you all the very best. Thanks for joining us today. Cheers, Reece.
Well, what an amazing episode. And thank you so much to Reece. And it's so important because real life situations are often very, very different to situations that you learn in a controlled environment. So it's an important cause.
Yeah, of course they are. I mean, I think from my own martial arts journey, I think being comfortable, and it's something that Reece spoke about quite a lot there, being comfortable in combat and in conflict is something that, well, unless you've been dropped into a scenario often enough, you're never going to get comfortable, are you? And yeah, I think taking that to groups that otherwise wouldn't actively reach out and seek that, I think should make a big difference. So I'm hopeful it does get the support that it needs locally and potentially further afield. And I wish him all the luck on that journey. But James, great episode. Didn't hit a word of the day today, did we? Didn't hit a word of the day.
I think real life.
Real life. Yeah. Let's hyphenate it. Real life. Real life is today's word of the day. So thank you guys for listening. Really appreciate that.
Take care.
James.
See you soon.
On to the next one. Cheers. Bye now.